When I first opened my eyes that Thanksgiving morning, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't just quiet, it was too quiet. No laughter echoing down the hallway. No smell of my mom's famous cinnamon rolls drifting from the kitchen. The kind of silence that doesn't belong in a house that's usually full of chaos, chatter, and clattering dishes. I pulled on my slippers and shuffled downstairs, expecting to see my mom already fussing with the turkey or my little brother Chase sneaking bites of pie before breakfast. But the kitchen was spotless. Not a single dish in the sink, not even a crumb on the counter. The dining table was bare, the chairs neatly tucked in, like no one had even planned to celebrate. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper resting on the counter. My mother's delicate handwriting looping across the front. My name, Emma. My heart gave a small, hopeful flutter. Maybe they had gone out for last-minute groceries. Maybe they were planning a surprise. I unfolded the note with shaking hands. Didn't want to wake you. We'll be back next week. Don't cause trouble, that was it. No love, Mom. No explanation. Just those cold, clipped words. For a long moment, I just stood there, reading it over and over, waiting for the punchline. Then I pulled out my phone, trying to make sense of it. Our family group chat was empty except for a message from 2 days ago. Everyone ready for the big day. My sister Lily had sent a thumbs up emoji. I had replied with a smiley face, of course eager, stupidly excited. I opened Instagram. The first thing I saw made my stomach drop. A photo of all 4 of them, Mom, Dad, Lily, and Chase, smiling on a white sand beach, the turquoise water glimmering behind them. My sister's caption read, "Family Thanksgiving Getaway. So thankful for these people, red #family first #blessed." I blinked, my vision blurring as tears welled up. Family first, the irony hit so hard I almost laughed. I scrolled through more pictures, Dad holding a cocktail, Mom lounging by the pool, Chase posing in front of a luxury resort sign. I kept waiting for a tag, a mention, something that said, "We miss you, Emma." There was nothing. The house suddenly felt enormous, every shadow whispering, "You weren't worth taking along." I made a cup of coffee just to have something to do. The spoon clinked against the mug, echoing too loudly in the emptiness. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam curling upward, trying not to cry. But the tears came anyway, hot, bitter, endless. I had cooked Thanksgiving dinner every year since I was 16, because Mom always said she was too tired. I had decorated the house, organized the traditions, made the day feel special. And now they were celebrating on a beach somewhere, without even thinking of me. I thought of that note again, "Don't cause trouble." Maybe for them, I was trouble, the quiet one, the odd one out, the one who didn't quite fit their perfect smiling picture. Outside, the world was gray and cold, the sky heavy with clouds. Inside, I felt the same. That was the moment I realized something had broken, not just in my family, but in me. And what they had left behind this Thanksgiving morning wasn't just their daughter. It was someone who was finally starting to see the truth. For days after Thanksgiving, the silence in the house clung to me like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. Every time I passed the kitchen, I half expected to see my mom humming as she cooked or my dad reading the paper at the table. But the chairs stayed empty, the room stayed hollow, their laughter still echoed faintly in my mind, a phantom sound of a family that, perhaps, never really included me. I tried to tell myself that this was all some misunderstanding, that maybe they planned to surprise me later. But deep down, I already knew the truth. It wasn't the first time I'd been left out. Memories crept in, uninvited. When I was 12, I'd spent weeks making a handmade card for my mom's birthday, cutting, painting, even pressing tiny dried flowers into the cover. She had smiled distractedly, set it on the counter, and turned to admire the expensive handbag my sister Lily bought her. By the next morning, my card was gone, probably tossed with the wrapping paper. When I won my first art contest at 16, I ran home with the ribbon still in my hand. Dad barely looked up from his laptop. "That's great, kiddo," he'd said. "But make sure you're keeping up in your math classes. Art won't pay the bills." And when I got into college on a full scholarship, they didn't even come to my award ceremony. They'd been at Chase's football game instead. "We'll celebrate later," Mom had promised, but later never came. Lily was the golden child, radiant and adored, always at the center of attention. Chase was the miracle baby, spoiled and loud and endlessly forgiven. I was the quiet one, the helper, the afterthought, the filler between their perfect children. So, when they boarded a plane without me, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but knowing that didn't make it hurt less. The following Monday, a text from Mom appeared on my phone. "Hope you're doing fine, sweetie. Remember to water the plants." No apology, no explanation, just a reminder about her succulents. I typed a dozen replies, angry ones, sad ones, sarcastic ones, but deleted them all. What was the point? Words never seemed to reach them anyway. That night, I lay on my bed scrolling through their new vacation photos. They looked so happy, sipping cocktails, snorkeling, laughing under palm trees. Not one face in those pictures showed any sign of guilt or longing. It was like I had never existed at all. I felt something shift inside me then, a quiet, simmering realization. Maybe I'd been clinging too hard to a family that didn't want to hold on to me. Maybe my love for them had been a kind of blindness, one I couldn't afford anymore. I closed my eyes and imagined what life might look like without them. No expectations, no invisible role to play. Just me, free to be seen, free to create, free to exist. For the first time, the thought didn't scare me. It comforted me. That night, I pulled out my sketchbook. My hand trembled as I drew the outline of an empty table of 5 chairs, one missing. A family gathered without its heart. Beneath the sketch, I wrote the words that had begun to form in my mind. They left me behind. Maybe that's how I'll finally move forward. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of everything. The days after that night bled together like watercolor, soft edges blurring time. I no longer checked my phone for messages or photos from the Bahamas. I already knew there would be none meant for me. The note they'd left had done its job, silenced me, erased me from their world. But instead of breaking, I began to paint. It started as therapy. Late nights under the dim yellow glow of my desk lamp. I dipped my brush into color and let it speak for me. I painted the ache in my chest, the loneliness in the corners of the empty house, the invisible wounds of being forgotten. I painted until my fingers ached and the tears dried. The first painting I finished was titled "The Table Was Empty." In it, a family sat together in warm light, faces turned away, and one chair, the nearest to the viewer, was vacant, its edges fading into the shadows. It was simple, but raw, painfully honest. On impulse, I posted a photo of it on social media with a short caption. Some tables were never meant to seat everyone. I didn't expect anyone to care. But overnight, the post exploded, thousands of likes, hundreds of comments from strangers saying they understood. People wrote about being forgotten by family, about feeling invisible. My inbox filled with messages, some comforting, some heartbreaking, all connecting. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone. A few days later, a message arrived from a small art blog asking to feature my work. I said yes, then another came from a local gallery owner who wanted to showcase The Table Was Empty in an exhibition about loss and belonging. I stared at the email for a long time before whispering, yes. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just the girl who got left behind. I was an artist. I started creating more. Pieces that told my story without bitterness, only truth, the quiet heartbreak, the small triumphs, the strength of surviving solitude. My art became my voice, louder than I ever was at the dinner table. Soon, I sold my first painting. Then another, enough to finally move out. The day I packed my things, the house felt foreign, like a museum of memories that no longer belonged to me. I left the note my family had written on the counter, folded neatly beside the key. Their words, "Don't cause trouble," had once stung. Now they only made me smile. I moved into a tiny studio apartment downtown. The walls were cracked, the floors creaked, and the paint peeled in places, but it was mine. I strung fairy lights along the ceiling and stacked my canvases by the window. The air smelled like turpentine and freedom. Every brushstroke became a heartbeat. Every painting, a piece of healing stitched into color. I was no longer waiting for their approval or love. I was building something far stronger, a life that didn't need to fit their picture. perfect frame. By the time my family's vacation ended, I had already left them behind not in anger, but in peace. They left me without a word, but I had finally found my voice. The house smelled faintly of dust and leftover autumn leaves. My room, once cluttered with notebooks, brushes, and childhood trophies, was empty except for a single envelope on the desk. My mother picked it up, recognizing my handwriting immediately. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was just a note, neat and simple. "You left me once." I just learned how to stay gone. For a moment, none of them spoke. My father's hands trembled as he set the note down. Lily's eyes welled up, and even Chase, usually brash and unconcerned, looked confused and guilty. They searched the apartment, called my phone, but I didn't answer. Because I didn't need them anymore. The following months were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my art with relentless determination. My small studio apartment became a sanctuary of creation. The empty walls were filled with canvases depicting the pain and beauty of being unseen, the longing for recognition, and the slow, steady climb toward independence. One morning, I received an invitation from a prestigious gallery in New York. They wanted to feature my work, including my first viral piece. The table was empty. My hands shook as I confirmed. That night, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, realizing something powerful. This was my revenge. Not anger, not resentment, but something much more profound, triumph. The night of the exhibition arrived, and the gallery was packed. My centerpiece, a massive painting titled "The Feast Without Me," dominated the room. The canvas depicted a grand Thanksgiving table, overflowing with dishes. The family gathered in perfect form, except for the central chair, empty, glowing in soft light. It was the chair I had once occupied, the chair they had abandoned, now transformed into a symbol of my survival and resilience. And then I saw them, my family, standing awkwardly in the crowd. Their faces paled as recognition hit. Mom clutched her pearls, Dad's jaw tightened, Lily's eyes darted nervously, and Chase shifted uncomfortably. I didn't approach them. I didn't even look at them directly. I stepped onto the small stage to give my speech, and the room fell silent. I used to believe that family was where I would always be safe. I began, my voice steady, where love was unconditional. But sometimes, the people we love most can't see us, not really. And sometimes, leaving is the only way to be seen. The applause was thunderous. A few whispers spread through the crowd, admiration, awe, even envy. But my eyes didn't seek anyone in particular. I had already claimed my victory. They lingered, hoping, perhaps, for reconciliation. But I had changed. I was no longer the girl who waited in the shadows, overlooked and dismissed. I was the woman who had found her voice, built her life, and thrived despite their absence. In the end, my revenge wasn't cruelty or malice. It was grace. It was proof that being left behind didn't define me, I defined myself. And the empty chair at the head of the table, it wasn't a symbol of loss anymore. It was a beacon of strength, independence, and the quiet triumph of a heart that refused to remain invisible. As I looked at the painting, surrounded by applause and strangers who truly saw me, I realized the sweetest revenge isn't about hurting those who wronged you. It's about rising above them and never looking back.